And welcome to our webinar. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm Pedro Arista, and I, along with my colleague, Dorian Louie, will be facilitating today's informational webinar. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on the Hellman Foundation website soon. The Hellman Foundation is thrilled to announce the 2022 round of Collaborative Change Initiative funding for ambitious cross-sector collaborations in Alameda and San Francisco counties that are working to solve our toughest challenges. We believe that now is a critical time to support bold cross-sector collaborations, working to expand fairness and opportunity for our Bay Area communities. Our goal today is to provide you with information about the initiative, including going over eligibility criteria. We will have time set aside towards the end to go over questions you may have. Feel free to post as many questions as you like anytime during the presentation in the question and answer box. Thank you again for joining us today on this beautiful morning. And now I'll hand it off to Dorian. Thanks so much.
Thanks, Pedro. Good morning, everyone. It's great to have you on here. I'm Dorian Louie. I wanted to first take a minute to introduce you to this team that is working behind the scenes and in the field on this Hellman Collaborative Change Initiative. We work very closely together to provide thought partnership, capacity building resources, and flexible grant support to our collaborative partners. We also take a trust-based approach to this initiative, from centering the voices of our communities that are served by these powerful collaborations to evolving our grant-making process based on what we're learning with our collaborative partners on the ground. I'm just going to shut off my camera here just so that I can focus on that, but just know that I'm here. So today, what are we going to cover? Here's our agenda. First, we're going to present a brief overview of the Collaborative Change Initiative and its goals. We're going to move into talking about the eligibility and criteria for both launch and growth tracks. And we're so excited to be joined today by a current collaborative partner, Oakland Starting Smart and Strong, to hear about their work and impact. And after that, we'll go over some information that you can find on our website and some key dates for the application process. Finally, we're excited to hear from you today in our Q&A session. And we encourage you to submit your questions in the Q&A feature that should be at the bottom strip of your screen here. We'll try our best to answer as many questions as we can, but if we don't get your question, just know that we're updating our FAQ page on the website consistently as new questions keep coming in during the application period. Also a reminder that this recording will be posted on the website, so you can always refer back to it if you need to. So on our next slide, before we jump into the overview, we are going to take a quick poll. We'd like to just know a little bit about who's in the room. And the question today is, what is the sector that you're representing today? Now, we understand that our roles are intersectional and that some of you fill multiple roles, but what role best suits you today and your interest in this webinar? I'm going to go ahead and give you a minute to fill that in. And while you're filling that in, we list these sectors here because our experience tells us from the initiative that the strongest collaborations are ones that are supported and represented by multiple sectors working together, and ones that actively engage members of the community to launch and scale their ambitious programs. So thank you for being here and to learn more about and to support this work. Liz, how are we doing with the poll? Oh, wow. So an overwhelming amount of you coming from the community-based organization or nonprofit sector, welcome. We have some folks also from the public sector, from academia, and a few funders as well. So this is very exciting to know that we are so well represented by community-based orgs today. Great. Well, let's move on to the next slide. So what is the Collaborative Change Initiative? Well, since 2014, this initiative has awarded nearly $11 million to enable cross-sector collaborations in Alameda and San Francisco counties to either pilot or scale their ambitious solutions and to impact systems to address disparities in health, education, and opportunity. And before I move on here, I wanted to elaborate on this third area of focus for this grant, equitable opportunities, because we see this as a critical category for pressing issues that have escalated since the pandemic, such as, but not limited to, things like violence prevention, workforce development, economic security, recovery from school learning loss. And we're interested in hearing from these collaborations that are working towards equitable individual or community-based outcomes in these areas. So the initiative provides multi-year flexible dollars and capacity building resources. It advances equity by investing in solutions that both recognize and address racial and economic disparities. It unites partners working together across sectors. Collaborations are driven by diverse perspectives and deep community engagement. And finally, this initiative is guided by trust-based philanthropy. Now, trust-based philanthropy is an approach that rebalances the power in traditional philanthropy towards communities through practices that trust organizations to allocate flexible resources to where they're most needed and to enable innovative solutions to emerge through collaborations. So Pedro, do you want to expand on this with the 5 phases of collaboration?
Sure thing. Thank you, Dorian. As shown here in the phases of collaboration, we have identified 2 critical inflection points in which we find that it is key for collaborations to obtain flexible funding and capacity building resources. We have now structured our grant making for the initiative to support 2 distinct tracks, launch and growth grants. Launch grants are intended to support early stage collaborations to pilot new solutions that have the potential to be scaled for broad impact and build the internal strength of the collaboration to effectively carry out the work and to generate stakeholder support. Early stage collaborations include existing collaborative tables where members have been meeting, coming together to identify a problem and create a set of solutions to address the issue. The solutions are creative and bold with an eye towards potential citywide scale in the near future. Growth grants are intended to support mid-stage collaborations to begin scaling proven effective solutions that have the potential for broad city or county-wide impact and to build momentum across various stakeholders from diverse sectors. Mid-stage collaborations include existing collaborative tables where members have already identified a problem, tested a set of solutions which can have been proven effective and are ready to scale across a city or county.
Great, thank you, Pedro. So to drill down a little bit further into launch grants, so launch grants support early stage existing collaborations in Alameda County or San Francisco County to pilot new solutions and service models, to build internal strength of the collaboration. And the grant funds up to $150,000 per year over a 3-year span, totaling $450,000. And that doesn't include also the capacity building supports that grantees receive through trainings and workshops that are specialized. The grant supports a number of different things. It's flexible, so it can support core operations, pilot activities, collaborative strength building activities, and other backbone costs associated with the work, like staffing, consultants, evaluation, the costs of convening. And the grant period is a 3-year period that begins January 1st, 2023. And to give you an example of a current launch collaborative partner, I want to turn your attention at the bottom right of this gorgeous photo for a collaboration called Expecting Justice. Expecting Justice works to eliminate health inequities for birthing people specifically Black and Pacific Islander people who are suffering the highest rates of preterm births through innovative programs that include anti-racism training for medical and social service providers and doula support for Black and Pacific Islander parents. And through the Collaborative Change Initiative, Expecting Justice piloted a program that provides unconditional income supplementation to 150 low-income Black and Pacific Islander mothers during pregnancy and postpartum to improve their health outcomes and to provide an equitable start to their infants' lives. If you'd like more information about them, please visit our website under the 2019 awardees page. So to be eligible to apply for the launch grants, collaborations should be an existing cross-sector collaboration in Alameda County or San Francisco County with at least 4 partner institutions and at least 6 members at the table. Applicants must have a proven track record of working together that predates this proposal. The collaboration should also include lead partners from the nonprofit sector and the public sector. They should intentionally engage community members with lived experience, have in-kind commitments and/or financial resources to support the collaboration, be able to effectively manage core collaborative functions such as guiding strategy and vision, facilitating meetings, coordinating activities, and finally, they should be in phase 2 of the 5 phases of collaboration, which Pedro went over earlier. And now I'm going to pass this to Pedro to talk about growth grants.
Great. Thank you, Dorian. Just a note that we'll definitely have time to answer your questions after our brief presentation. So definitely feel free to share them in the question and answer box that you see there. Okay, moving on to growth grants. Unlike the launch track, growth grants are intended to support mid-stage existing collaborations in Alameda or San Francisco counties to do a few things. One is to begin scaling proven evidence-based solutions that have the potential for broad city or county-wide impact. Strengthen the collaborations, building capacity for scale to ultimately influence systems change, and to build stakeholder support from different sectors to reach ambitious goals. The grant period is 5 years and begins on January 1st of next year. Funds may be used to support a number of activities, including supporting key operations of the collaborative table so that the collaboration can effectively scale the solutions, cover costs of direct services, support activities to build the strength and effectiveness of the collaboration. Funds may also be used to build support for the collaboration, including financial, political, and public support. Applicants can request up to $750,000 total over the 5-year grant period. On the right there, you see images from 2 current collaborative partners who received growth grants, Recipe for Health, which is a program of All in Alameda County, and Food as Medicine, another collaboration located in San Francisco. These collaborative partners are tackling food insecurity by scaling food pharmacies in community clinics to reach underserved patients. We encourage you to go to the website, hellmanfoundation.org, and read about these collaborations so you can get an understanding of the kinds of projects the foundation supports through the initiative. To be eligible for a growth grant, collaborations should meet all of these eligibility criteria that you see here on the slide. Collaborations need to be an existing and highly active cross-sector collaboration in Alameda or San Francisco County that includes a total of at least 5 partner organizations and at least 8 active members of the collaborative table. Include lead partners from the nonprofit and public sector. Again, we are looking for collaborative tables that intentionally engage community members with lived experience who are active in the collaboration and engaged in the community. The most competitive submissions have community members at the table at the center of the work, informing the collaborative process and implementation phase. Collaborations should have a track record of working together as a cross-sector collaboration. This includes creating a shared vision and strategy, piloting solutions, providing direct services, and learning from experience. Collaborations should effectively manage critical core collaborative functions, be active in implementing solutions with the potential for citywide or county-wide scale in San Francisco, a city in Alameda County, or across Alameda County. Collaborations should have existing or committed in-kind resources as well. And lastly, the collaboration should be in phase 3 or 4 of the 5 phases of collaboration, which I described earlier. Great. Now, I'd like to introduce Priya from Oakland Steiny Smart and Strong, another impactful collaboration funded by the Hellman Collaborative Change Initiative. Oakland Steiny Smart and Strong brings community together to create an early childhood system where all Oakland children and families have access to opportunities to reach their full potential. In listening to Priya, we hope you'll build your knowledge of the kinds of projects the foundation supports through this initiative. Thanks so much for joining us, Priya. I'll hand it off to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Pedro. Thank you for having me here today. I am really excited and appreciative that Hellman is continuing to support collaborative work because I strongly believe that collaboratives are necessary to address complex problems, and funding to support deep, meaningful collaborative work is often hard to find. So much appreciation to Hellman for that. As Pedro mentioned, I'm the director of Oakland Starting Smart and Strong, an early childhood collaborative. Our website link is on the slide, so please visit it. We are really working to develop community-driven solutions and advocate for changes in policy and resources to create an early childhood system that effectively and equitably serves children 0 to 5, their families, caregivers, and educators in Oakland. We focus our resources and system building effort on those most impacted by structural racism and economic inequity. And we have worked really hard to build a strong cross-sector collaborative table that's intentionally centered in the leadership and experiences of Oakland families and early childhood practitioners. Our collaborative members and leaders include parent advocacy groups, early care and education providers, city and county systems leaders and representatives of elected officials, community-based organizations, philanthropy, and the school district. So we have many multiple perspectives at our table. And our specific focus areas include supporting formal early childhood education, supporting informal caregivers, and the healthy development of young children. And our community-informed strategies include service provision, systems coordination, and policy and advocacy efforts, all with the through lines of making data accessible and actionable, uplifting parent and educator leadership, and systems change. In a little bit of history about our collaborative, we received seed funding in 2014 from the Packard Foundation through a 10-year grant. And we applied for Hellman funding around the 4th year of our collaborative because we wanted to go deeper into and be grounded in our racial justice work. And we received funding for creating supports and services for young boys of color in West Oakland and to identify opportunities to scale those supports. Based upon that work, Hellman really encouraged us to take our learnings and experiences into the policy and advocacy arena. We had been more focused on service provision and scaling services in our systems change work. And with the support of the Hellman Foundation, we were able to bring on a policy analyst to support the work and to staff a policy and advocacy committee. And this committee is co-led by a parent advocacy leader and a systems partner who have worked with community to create a policy and advocacy agenda that really centers the experience and strengths of children, families, and educators and outlines our priorities. And in terms of a concrete example of how we use the funding to further our collaborative efforts, we were noticing that family childcare providers were not being adequately addressed in early childhood policy and resource discussions. Family childcare providers, or also called FCCs, run small home-based childcare businesses, and they've served a really critical role as educators and community leaders during the pandemic, providing care for the children of essential workers and working families while not being adequately compensated or recognized. So we worked in partnership with Bananas, a childcare resource and referral agency, and First 5 Alameda County and other partners to create a policy program for FCC providers. And we are working with this dynamic group of FCC providers and parent advocates to uplift their voices in policy conversations. So we provide the backbone support for this group that meets regularly, and they've had success in holding community conversations with other providers, with meeting with the school district around kindergarten transition efforts. And they have made a direct request to the Alameda County Board of Supervisors for a $1 million emergency fund, and have also met with state legislators to advocate for their priorities. So this group is increasingly being recognized as a group that holds expertise and power in our early childhood community. So this is an example of how the Hellman Foundation has helped us take our collaborative to the next level, from identifying gaps in representation and decision-making to supporting community organizing and providing a link and bridge to policymakers. And I want to share a little bit about what it's been like to work with Hellman. Dorian mentioned the trust-based philanthropy, and I found that to be really true. They are true partners and champions of our work, and they understand what collaborative work means and entails. And we've been able to have honest conversations about the challenges we faced. And Hellman has really also helped us with capacity building around communications, policy work, conversations with other potential funders, and connecting us to other grantees to share experiences. They have been truly responsive to community needs, especially during the pandemic, both with resources, but also with their flexible approach to the work. And I want to just end with sharing that Hellman funding provided us with resources to deepen our collaborative work and our impact, and to move our table from being a table that had established relationships, was sharing updates and information with each other, which is very important, but to being more thoughtful on our trajectory with each other and really intentional with how resources are shared and distributed to shift power dynamics and have a lasting impact. And with that, I want to wish you all the best of luck with your collaborations and with seeking funding. Thank you.
Thank you, Priya. Wow, I could hear you all day. I think I could take this entire webinar just hearing about Oakland starting smart and strong, and all the wonderful work you're doing. Thank you so much for being a collaborative partner with us. Well, before we move on to our Q&A session, I just wanted to highlight a few recommendations to all of you, all potential applicants. First, we recommend that you carefully review the criteria and eligibility requirements for launch and growth grants to confirm your collaborations fit before applying. Second, we encourage you to visit the FAQ page, since this page will be consistently updated, not only with questions that we're getting via email at apply@Hellman, but also through this webinar. And finally, we recommend looking at the list of grantee partners on the website, especially the 2019 cohort, where you'll learn more about Priya's work and about expecting justice and all that were mentioned here, to get a sense of the types of collaborations we've funded, who they serve, how they engage leaders, how they engage community members across sectors with the implementation of their solutions. This next slide are a few tips as you prepare for application. So you can go to the 2022 How to Apply page on our website and register with your contact information, and you'll see this page where you can download the application right away. There's no commitment to apply once you register, but I do recommend that once you've downloaded the application, that you save it to your computer to avoid having to register again. A couple of key dates here. The deadline for the request for information application is March 16th by 5 p.m. Pacific time. And notifications of whether or not your application will move forward into the next round will be sent by April 4th. Okay, Pedro, I'm gonna turn it over to you.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and I just want to echo my gratitude echo you, Dorian, by sharing our gratitude to Priya and everyone at Oakland Studying Smart and Strong for the important work that they're doing. As we all know and can read about, our children and families are going through a lot during these times with COVID and reopening and whatnot. And so appreciate the work that they are doing, as well as other leaders in throughout the Bay Area to support our children and families. So now we're moving into our question and answer session. And this is really your opportunity to submit your questions about the initiative. And we do have a few questions popping up. And so we'll review them and answer them. And if we run out of time, we'll make sure to answer them on the Hellman Foundation website. And we definitely encourage you to look at the FAQ tab, where there are tons of questions and responses as well. With our hope there is to provide you with real-time responses to the kinds of questions we're receiving from applicants. So let's start with the first question. Will you share these slides with attendees? We will share these slides as well as the recording for this webinar. It will be available very soon. And so these slides will be available to you all. Another question here, to clarify, the collaboratives should be bound within San Francisco or Alameda counties, not a collaboration that includes partners within these counties, but not limited to these counties. If I'm understanding the question, as long as a cross-sector collaboration is active and either piloting or scaling solutions or looking to scale solutions in Alameda or San Francisco County, that meets that eligibility criteria. So yes, I hope I answered that question. If I didn't, please go ahead and re-ask it again in the question and answer box. Another question here, let's see. Does it matter if the organization applying has programs in other regions, as long as the work for this grant takes place in Alameda or San Francisco counties? That is correct. We understand that there are different kinds of nonprofits or organizations that have programs that reach throughout the Bay Area, whether it's in Contra Costa, Marin County, for example. But as long as the work is centered and implemented in Alameda or San Francisco County, and it's an active collaboration with membership that's made up with leaders represented in those counties, it meets the criteria. Let's see, the next question. Can collaborations include broader partners beyond SF and Alameda if impacts will be seen in Alameda and San Francisco counties? Sure, absolutely. There are some collaborative partners that have, let's say, have members that are part of the table. A few members are part of the table that have expertise in a particular policy matter, for example, or have an understanding of like what's happening in Sacramento with particular ledge visits, or and they may be stationed in Sacramento, but it's in service to the collaborative that's centered in doing the work in Alameda and San Francisco County. That is fine. That does meet our eligibility. So that can be for a member, an individual, or an organization. But as long as the table is made up of also stakeholders and people with lived experience from those counties, that's also very important. So I hope that I answered that question. Another question regarding resources. Let me see. Let's see. What, if any, percentage of committed resources in kind are required for growth grant? We don't have a percentage, so we don't have a 25 or 30% quota or standard, if you will. But we do hope that there are some commitment from other funders or in kind from your backbone organization that that shows a level of interest and commitment to the work. So there, I hope I answer that question, but there isn't a particular like standard or percentage, if you will, for this. Let's see. Yeah, so please feel free. Please keep share your questions and keep them coming. Let's see. With looking through the questions. I'm getting a number of questions related to current grantee partners of the Hellman Foundation. If you are receiving current funding from the Hellman Foundation for whether it's food or basic needs or regardless, something else that's not funding from this initiative, you are eligible to submit as long as you meet the other criteria for launch or growth tracks. So yes, current grantee partners of the Hellman Foundation are eligible to apply. Can charter schools apply? Yes, charter schools can apply as long as there is an active representative cross-sector collaborative table. The backbone organization or the lead organization can be a charter school. It can be a nonprofit like Planned Parenthood. It can be a smaller organization like Street Level Health Project in Oakland, or a number of these kinds of organizations. So yes, it can be the lead organization who submits the application, but as long as it's includes a representative and full collaborative table for either track, launch or growth, yes, that meets our eligibility requirement. Can you review again what activities the growth grant funds? Sure, let me look at that. Let's just 1 second. Let's see, the kinds of activities that are supported for that could be used for growth grants are a number of things. It could be staffing, consultants, any activities to support the development and strengthening of the collaboration, participating in conferences. It can also be for, implementation of solutions, evaluation, assessment of impact. What's also important to note is that this initiative offers a multi-year, as we shared, multi-year flexible funding. So it's general operating support. So we really look at collaborations to, develop a budget, of course, but really think through how to best spend their dollars to really meet the needs of their collaboration, but to either pilot or scale proven solutions. So we really look to collaborations to do that. And again, it can be the grants can be used for a number of things to support the strengthening of collaborations, as well as the implementation of solutions.
I just wanted to tack onto that one, Pedro. I'm
Sure.
seeing a question here, which is very similar. With the collaboration of multiple public and private sector organizations, is the funding shared among the collaboration or held by the main applicant and shared as the applicant chooses? And I think you just covered that really well, that it's really up to the collaboration to decide how the funding should be distributed.
That's absolutely right, Dorian. And so we have had collaborative partners do it both ways, where the backbone organization really holds a grant. Most of the grant, let's say, goes to supporting staff, the backbone staff. And then we had collaborative partners really share the resources with the lead organizations of the collaborative table. So we really looked to the applicant, the collaborative partner, to really think through how to leverage the resources. Let's see. Hello, here's one question. Hello, may we apply for both a launch grant for one initiative with an Alameda and San Francisco collaboration and a growth grant that operates in San Francisco and Alameda? And sure, you can apply if the project is in if one for in the launch track, if it's an early phase collaboration that's been active before today, that's been engaged and working together, really coming together to address a specific problem in Alameda, San Francisco County, that is fine. And if that, of course, and if you meet the eligibility criteria that Dorian shared, sure. And if there is another, if the lead organization is also interested in applying for a growth grant, because it's an active mid-stage collaboration with a number of partners, I believe it's 8, and partner institutions as well, and it has a track record of piloting the solutions and now is ready to scale in San Francisco, Alameda counties, you could apply as well, as long as you meet the eligibility criteria. So we really encourage everyone to definitely go to the Hellman Foundation website to make sure that you look at the eligibility criteria for both launch and growth to make sure that you meet the criteria. But you could submit to either or both if you have an earlier collaboration and or one that's been working and one that's been working together for some time and it's farther along in the phases of collaboration. Here's a question for you, Dorian. What materials are needed for the application? Are there any specific items for the initial proposal that we have to garner? Letters of support, for example, anything like that?
Sure. Well, I think when you look at the application, really it's mainly a narrative, and there is a section for attachments. And really what we're asking in the attachment section is to list your collaboration's key members and their roles. And when it comes to things like letters of support, that I think that would help us to understand a little bit more about your collaborative and, the type of visibility and impact it's having. So it's not required at this point. So, just for this application, there will be just mainly some narrative questions here, as well as just a list of your collaborative members.
Right.
I also just wanted to remind someone here, I think that they said, where can we find the application questions? And again, you can go to the website, how to apply page, register quickly, and then you can get the application right away.
Yeah, thank you, Dorian. We have another question here. Question is, we have a solution already implemented in San Francisco for 3 years. If we want to create that model in Alameda, will that be considered as launch or growth? Great question. It depends. If there is an active mid-stage collaboration that is already engaged in a city in Alameda County or throughout Alameda County that's already active and engaged, then you could potentially apply for the growth track because you're looking to replicate and or adapt and scale a proven solution in Alameda County. However, if you in the implementation of the solution, it sounds like it has been happening now for about 3 years in San Francisco. If you're looking to do this work in Alameda County, and if there isn't an active cross-sector collaboration that is earlier in their development, then you may not be eligible. However, if there is a cross-sector collaboration that's earlier in their development, early stage, as we described in the launch portion that Dorian shared, and they are interested, this cross-sector collaboration that's earlier in their development in Alameda County is open and interested to really adapt and test this proven solution in San Francisco in Alameda County, then we could consider that and that would be eligible. So it really depends. This question is a great one, but it really also depends on the collaboration as well. So I hope I answered that question. It's a good one, and also reminds us of the current state of the collaboration. If it's early and active, or is it mid-stage and active? Thank you for that. Would a project taking place in San Francisco with potential for statewide scalability be eligible? If I'm understanding the question, the solution that's being either piloted or scaled needs to be piloted or scaled in San Francisco or Alameda County. This initiative is looking to test pilot and or deepen impact in these two counties. Now, later on, if the work is scaled throughout the state, that's good and that's wonderful and that's great. But for the purposes of this initiative and the uses of this grant, we're really looking to pilot and or scale solutions that impact directly those living in San Francisco or Alameda counties. Yes, can you speak, here's a question about asking, can you speak a little bit more on what you mean by cross-sector approach? Yes, we are looking for cross-sector collaborations that have collaborative tables that are representative of different sectors. That may include the public. That definitely has to include the public sector. So you're thinking about this would include the mayor's office, Oakland Unified School District or San Francisco Unified School District, your Department of Public Health, any public sector entity. And also important to include other sectors as well, like the nonprofit sector. It could include the business sector, the tech sector. Reason why we really value a cross-sector approach is because we have seen through evidence and through experience from our collaborative partners that there's no one organization or one sector, for that matter, that can really tackle and solve these intractable problems impacting our Bay Area communities. It really requires a diverse set of actors and organizations coming together to really plan, pilot, assess, and implement. So that's what it is. That's what we mean by implementing a cross-sector approach. And it really starts with having also a cross-sector collaborative table that's representative of diverse voices and organizations, and especially those with lived experience, those that are impacted by the problems and may potentially benefit from the solutions. We want to make sure that people with lived experience are also actively engaged in the collaborative process as well. What are the criteria guidelines for sufficient evidence base? We don't have guidelines for what makes an intervention. Let's say, what makes enough evidence, an intervention per se. We don't have that kind of standard or guideline. We do actually value and appreciate innovative solutions. And so, for example, if you go to the Hellman Foundation website and look at Food as Medicine and Recipe for Health, all in Alameda County, which this initiative started to fund in 2017, they were looking to scale food pharmacies. At the time they presented these fantastic interventions, there was some evidence, but it wasn't big evidence, if that makes sense. There was some evidence to state that there is a correlation between positive health outcomes with the implementation of food pharmacies. So all that to say, that's they moved forward and received growth grants from the Hellman Foundation. And now have not only implemented food pharmacies, but have also scaled food pharmacies in both Alameda and San Francisco counties, and also are building the evidence by publishing their findings. So that's a really good example of implementation, scaling, and also building the evidence, which we definitely support, and also provide capacity building resources and dollars so that these collaborations can also build the evidence in a number of issues that they're deeply engaged in. Let's see. Next question, what types of change does a program want to invest in? Policy change, coordination of direct services, narrative change, etc. I've previously heard that it was focused on direct service, but Priya talked about receiving a grant focus on advocacy. Great question. We definitely value direct services, and the initiative grant, either growth or launch, can be leveraged and for direct services. And at the same time, we also believe that, also know from research and experience from our collaborative partners, that in order to accomplish systems change, we also have to have an upstream strategy, a policy advocacy strategy. All that to say that a portion of your grant should certainly be dedicated to direct services. We don't have a quota. Is it 50% on this direct services? We do, and then 50% on policy advocacy. We don't have a quota like that or a standard, but we certainly definitely value that a good portion of the grant should be for direct services and collaborative functions, as with an understanding that you may engage in policy advocacy and leverage some grant dollars for this. We have supported policy advocacy activities for collaborative partners by providing them with additional capacity building resources and funding to do a number of things in the policy advocacy realm. They've either attended conferences in Sacramento, for example, from CalWorks. They have hired policy advocacy experts to help them build their inside-outside strategy game plan, for example. They have hired consultants to look at all the number of policies that have been locally implemented that they should learn more about, for example. So there are capacity building resources that are available to collaborative partners that they can access for policy advocacy as well. And all collaborative partners do receive grants, but also, as we mentioned, receive capacity building resources as well. So hopefully that answers that question. For growth grants, you mentioned political support. Can you say more? Let's see. Yes, I believe what we mean by political support is if there are policymakers or public sector leaders that you see is important to have their support for the important work that you are leading, then that is important, and you could leverage this grant to support activities that could then lead to greater political support. I think that also I answered that question in the previous response as well. This is for you, Dorian. May funds be used for research on impact of a pilot?
Yes. Especially if this is considered part of your pilot activity, I'm thinking that this may lead into a pilot, like an actual activity or an evaluation. I think, however, if this grant, if you're proposing to just fund the research, and not actually the activities. I think we would be interested in looking at the activities and the implementation of that, not just the research. We are hoping that the research would come sort of before the pilot, is ready to be implemented. So maybe as I'm saying yes, what I think I'm trying to say here is that the research, we see the research and the evaluation and the implementation as being all part of this program, all part of the implementation of the pilot. However, if you were just to propose using this grant just for the research part, it may not be as competitive. I hope I answered that fully. And Pedro, if there's anything to add on that, please hop in.
Yeah, you answered it. Thank you. We have another question here. We are in the early childhood education space. If our partners are also within early childhood education field and they are all child care providers, will that be considered as cross-sector? Are we eligible to apply? What I would say is the most competitive applications have a cross-sector table that is representative of diverse actors or members of the collaboration, or diverse actors with different kinds of experiences in different sectors. So if there's a collaboration looking to tackle an early childhood education issue impacting, I would say, I would look at, are there ECE providers? Yes. Are there parents? Great. Yes. Are there other organizations like the local school district, a First Five, for example, like other kinds of organizations that also, and actors or members that are also heavily engaged in early childhood education ECE work. So yes, certainly partners. So all that to say that that this is true for both launch and growth, that we want to see collaborative tables that are cross-sector, those with lived experience, certainly, but also have other organizations that are engaged in this kind, in the issue that you're trying to tackle and solve for together. Let's see, and we have about a few more minutes left. Let's see.
Pedro, we have a couple of questions here around the definition of collaboration and also just the formalization of collaboration, right? So one question here is asking, is the definition of collaboration flexible? For example, would an organization that emerged from and is overseen by a multi-year fellowship cohort qualify as collaboration? And another one we have is that our collaboration is loose, meaning that we only have formal MOUs with a number of our partners, but not all. And given that not all our partners are formalized, would we need to start with launch? So two questions there I thought you could maybe answer around the definition and nature of collaboration.
Yes, thank you. A definition is flexible a bit, and definitely encourage you to make sure that whether for launch or growth, that you meet the eligibility criteria for the number of partner organizations and total members as well. So and also that for growth, for example, we're looking for both nonprofit and public sector organizations involved with the collaboration. So yes, there is some flexibility, but there's also a set of criteria, eligibility criteria, that we have for both launch and growth track, and want to make sure that you meet those eligibility criteria. And you mentioned nature, Dorian, and I already lost track of that question. Could you repeat that, please?
Sure. I think we have someone who's interested in finding out if they would be a better fit for launch because they have formal MOUs with only a couple, but not all the partners. And though they believe that they could be fit for growth, given that not all their partners are formalized, would they need to start with launch?
Yeah, that's a great question. We do appreciate and look at MOUs or formal understandings with partner organizations. However, if your table is pretty, your collaboration is in the mid-stage level, as described in the phases of collaboration, and you have a few MOUs, but not all of them signed, that's okay. I would then encourage you to think about the growth track if you have already, if you're already looking to scale a set of proven solutions in Alameda or San Francisco County, but it sounds like you may be missing a few MOUs. However, as long as a collaborative table meets eligibility criteria, number of partner organizations, member organizations, but you're missing a few MOUs, or you only have a few signed, all that to say is that I wouldn't consider the signed or unsigned MOUs as a criteria to look at growth or consider launch track, if that makes sense. I would really look at the current state of the cross-sector collaboration and where it's at. If you've already developed a shared vision, if you already have piloted a set of solutions and you're looking to scale, then it sounds like, if that was the case, it sounds like a growth track, growth grant would be a good fit. And we do have many more questions, which is great. And we have 3 minutes before our webinar ends. So what we'll do is certainly we will download all these questions and post them up on the FAQ page of the Hellman Foundation website under the Hellman Collaborative Change Initiative tab. And so if we did not get to your question, apologies about that, but we'll make sure to respond to the question on the FAQ page. If you have any other questions, please just feel free to reach out to us, and you have the email there. But now I'll hand it off to Dorian to wrap us up. Thank you all so much for these questions.
Thank you, Pedro. Thank you all, just from the nature of these questions and from everyone, from our large number of attendees. I just know that you're out there already doing really great work, change makers in your own right. And I just want to appreciate all of you for doing that and for being there for our communities, especially in these years, in the pandemic years. So again, just wanted to reiterate that if you have further questions, you see the email here, apply@hellmanfoundation.org. A member of our team will respond to your question, as well as visiting our FAQ page and our website. And other than that, we wish you well and wish you luck, and hope to hear from you.
Thank you, everyone.